Hello. In this short screencast, we're going to review the principles of dual language learners. Just as a reminder that this screencast is for candidates who are participating in Mile High Early Learning CDA training and seminar and are seeking a bilingual specialization. This is part of the additional coursework that is required in order to obtain that specialization. So we'll go ahead and start with our objectives for this training. So our objectives are to provide participants with a general overview of the principles of working with dual language learners in early childhood programming. So I think it's really important that we first start out with a definition of who and what dual language learners are. So dual language learners are children who are in our programs that are either learning two languages simultaneously, meaning that they have exposure to two different languages such as English and Spanish in their life, and or they are coming to a program and adding a new second language to their primary home language. So these might be our students who come into our programming where they've had no exposure to a second language minus the language that is spoken in their home, which would then be their primary language. It's important to note that infants are born into this world with the ability to learn any language. So we all have the capacity to learn language, and we actually have capacity to learn more than one language. There are just a couple different ways that we go about doing that. So when children are learning two languages simultaneously, this is called simultaneous dual language acquisition. And this means that children have exposure to more than one language in the home and or in an early childhood program. On the flip side, sequential dual language acquisition occurs when young children have already established a basic language ability in their home language, and they are now learning a second language through exposure of like an early learning program. And you might have children who come to your program that are in both of these different realms of learning language, but are still classified as a dual language learner. So I think it's really important to note that there are some developmental stages of what happens when children start to learn a second language. And it's important to note that these stages build upon one another, but there are individual differences among children. And so you as the teacher, it's your job to support children as they are learning through and going through these second language acquisition stages. So the first one is home language use. So children who are learning a second language will generally enter settings using their home language, and oftentimes there is a varying degree of which they are understood. I.e., are there people that are in their program that speak their home language? The next one is they're going to go through a nonverbal observational period. And this is if they don't feel understood in their home language, they're going to start to communicate more nonverbally because they have turned their attention to observing and listening and using nonverbal means of communicating. And the child is additionally working on learning the sounds, rules, and words of a new language. And the time a child spends in this particular stage can vary per child. And this is why we say that it's really important that you note that there will be individual differences in these developmental stages among children, and knowing when you need to step in for support and the type of support that needs to be offered. The third stage is telegraphic and formulatic speech. And this is the child will start to use language with the focus on results and not necessarily caring about the meaning of things. And the last stage is productive language, where children will start to use and experiment with language that they have been practicing and mastering. So again, it's really important that you recognize what stage a child is in the 4 developmental stages of second language acquisition, and that you work to support them with this. So what does a supportive early learning environment look like in terms of dual language learners? A supportive early learning environment would be age appropriate, individually appropriate, and culturally appropriate. So this means that you are encouraging parents to provide a strong foundation in the child's home language, and that you're also recognizing that each individual child's rate of pace for second language acquisition is going to differ, and that you are being supportive and encouraging as children are working through those 4 stages of second language acquisition. There are some other things that you can also do to create a supportive early learning environment for dual language learners, and they are welcoming children in their home language to the classroom, providing social support so that children who are dual language learners can navigate relationships with peers, making sure that you're reading books in both languages. You're also providing plenty of wait time especially as children are progressing through those 4 stages of language, second language acquisition, and that you are using environmental print to support with both their home language and the second language that they are using. I would also strongly encourage you to refer back to the reading for this week to gauge examples of what PD specialists will be looking for when they come out to observe you during your observation. Because just as a reminder, if you were seeking bilingual specialization, you need to be working in a bilingual program where you have the opportunity to speak in both more than one language as well. And again, you are going to be reading over the text this week as well, but just a highlight that this information comes from the Child Development Associate National Credentialing Program and CDA Competency Standards book written by the Council for Professional Recognition. Thanks.